Deep under the surface of the earth, where no human light had ever reached, something old was stirring. For thousands of years, the underground chambers had remained silent. Rocks had formed around massive structures that looked like giant cocoons made of metal and stone. The world above had changed again and again, but down there, nothing moved. Until now. It started with a small vibration, so small that no seismograph could catch it. In the quiet town of Coldridge, a mining company was digging deep tunnels for a new energy project. The workers were tired, covered in dust, and ready to end their shift. Among them was Ethan Cole, a young geologist who always felt there was something strange about this site. The readings he got from the scanners never made sense. The ground was hollow, but it was not a cave. Something was built there. That night, when most of the crew had left, Ethan stayed back to check the data. His tablet screen flickered, showing a faint pulse from below. He frowned, thinking it was just a technical glitch, but then the pulse repeated. It was rhythmic, steady, like a heartbeat. He stared at the graph for a long time, feeling cold air brush against his skin though the air in the tunnel was still. He walked closer to the rock wall, placed his hand on it, and froze. The stone was warm. He called his supervisor, but no one answered. Only static. The radio crackled with soft whispers, as if someone was speaking far away. Ethan stepped back, his flashlight flickering. The ground under him shook for a moment, then stopped. Dust fell from the ceiling. He turned to leave, but his path was blocked by a small collapse of rocks. Trapped, he tried to move the stones, but one sound made him stop. A deep, slow thud came from behind the wall, followed by another. It sounded like something was moving on the other side. Ethan's heart raced. He switched on the video recorder on his tablet, pointing it at the wall. He spoke in a low voice, trying to stay calm. He said the rock was vibrating, that something mechanical or alive was under it. The ground pulsed again, stronger this time, and thin cracks formed on the stone. Through one of the cracks, he saw a faint red light. He didn't understand what it was, but it was glowing like an eye. Above ground, in the control room, a woman named Dr. Lara Jensen was watching the seismic monitors. She saw sudden spikes and strange energy readings from Ethan's sector. She tried to contact him, but there was no reply. She frowned, checking the data again. The readings were not from natural sources. They looked artificial, almost patterned, like code. Lara ordered the rest of the team to shut down the power in the tunnel, thinking it was a short circuit, but the lights didn't go off. Instead, the power grid showed an external connection, as if something else had taken control. The computers started typing commands by themselves, lines of unknown symbols filling the screens. In the tunnel, Ethan saw the red light growing brighter. The cracks widened, and a low humming filled the air. He stepped back, recording everything, his breathing fast. The ground beneath his boots began to move like soft sand, though it was solid rock. Then, the wall broke open, and a blast of warm air hit him. A large metallic hand reached out from the hole, covered in layers of stone and rust. Its fingers flexed slowly, shaking off pieces of rock. Ethan couldn't move. His body froze between fear and awe. The hand pushed through, followed by a dark shape that looked half machine, half organic. It was massive, its body made of metal plates fused with stone, its head covered in ancient symbols glowing red. It looked at Ethan with one burning eye. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice failed. The creature tilted its head slightly, as if studying him. Then, from deep within the tunnel, more thuds echoed. More shapes were moving. The walls pulsed with red light, and strange sounds filled the air, voices, maybe, or signals. Up on the surface, Lara watched in shock as the ground trembled across the entire valley. The sensors showed multiple signals rising from beneath, spreading outward. Whatever was under the earth was not just one thing. It was many. Ethan's camera fell from his hand as he stumbled backward, still staring at the giant figure. He realized this was not a new discovery. It was something ancient, something buried long before humans built cities. The creature's glowing eye focused on him again. Then, in a low rumbling voice that shook the tunnel, it spoke a single word, one that Ethan could barely understand. Awakened. The power in the entire mining facility shut down instantly. The monitors went dark. The last thing Lara saw before the blackout was the seismic graph going off the scale. And far beneath the earth, in the darkness, hundreds of red lights slowly began to open, one after another. Darkness spread through the entire mining site after the explosion. The emergency lights flickered weakly, painting the tunnels in a ghostly red glow. Dust hung thick in the air, and the only sound was the echo of distant rumbling from deep below. Ethan coughed, trying to catch his breath. His ears were ringing, and his tablet was cracked, its screen flickering. He picked it up, still recording, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The creature was gone. Only a huge hole remained in the rock wall, leading into blackness. Warm air flowed out of it, smelling like metal and burnt stone. Ethan wanted to run, but something inside him needed to see what was beyond. He stepped closer to the opening and aimed his flashlight inside. The beam vanished into the shadows, hitting something metallic that curved like the inside of a massive chamber. Symbols were glowing faintly on the surface, pulsing like veins under skin. Meanwhile, on the surface, Dr. Lara Jensen was trying to contact the National Research Base. All communication lines were dead. The power grid was fried, and the backup generators were failing one by one. She gathered the few remaining workers in the control room, their faces pale and covered in sweat. She told them that something under the earth had reactivated, something old and not human. Most of them thought it was an earthquake or gas explosion, but Lara knew the truth. The signals she saw before the blackout were not natural, they were messages. She remembered the old research papers about the silent layers, strange readings deep under the crust that scientists could never explain. Some believed it was ancient magma patterns, others said it was metallic deposits. But one secret government file she had once read called it the Sleepers. She had thought it was just a myth. Back in the tunnel, Ethan recorded a short message for whoever might find his camera. He said the mining site had uncovered something living, buried far below human civilization. As he talked, a vibration passed through the ground again, stronger than before. The rocks around him cracked, and small pebbles fell from the ceiling. Then, faint red lights appeared deep in the new passageway. At first, he thought it was reflection, but the lights began to move, slowly, rhythmically, like eyes blinking in the dark. He turned and ran, stumbling over debris. The tunnels twisted like a maze, and his flashlight flickered with every step. Behind him, a low humming filled the air, followed by metallic footsteps echoing closer and closer. It didn't sound like one creature, it sounded like many. On the surface, Lara watched the valley shake from the control tower window. The ground cracked open in several places, releasing clouds of dust and gas. She saw faint red lights under the cracks, glowing through the soil. The pattern looked almost like a network, spreading outward from the mining site. Whatever was waking up down there was huge, maybe stretching for miles. She opened the emergency lockbox and pulled out a small hard drive. It contained all the data from the site, the strange signals, the readings, the footage. If they didn't survive, at least the world needed to know what happened here. She handed the drive to a young technician named Malik and told him to take the jeep and drive to the nearest military post, 20 miles away. He hesitated, but Lara's expression left no room for argument. Deep below, Ethan reached an old maintenance chamber. The lights were broken, but he found a control panel still glowing weakly. He pressed a few buttons, and an old monitor turned on, showing a blurry video feed. His eyes widened. The camera was deep inside another tunnel, showing enormous shapes moving in the dark. They were covered in dust and rock, but their glowing red eyes pierced through. He counted 5, then 10, then more. They were crawling out from underground chambers like soldiers waking from sleep. The feed suddenly switched to static, then a strange symbol appeared on the screen, an ancient circle with lines crossing it, almost like a sigil. Beneath it, words appeared in a language he couldn't read. Then, a robotic voice spoke through the speakers, slow and deep. Human presence detected. Awakening sequence initiated, planetary cycle reset. Ethan stared, unable to breathe. He didn't know what cycle reset meant, but the voice sounded final, like a warning. He grabbed his recorder and ran again, his footsteps echoing through the empty tunnels. Outside, Malik drove the jeep as fast as he could across the rough terrain. The ground trembled, and red lights flickered under the earth like veins of fire. He looked back and saw the mining facility collapsing into a massive sinkhole. A low roar echoed across the valley, shaking the air. In the control room, Lara stayed behind, watching the last working monitor. A faint shape appeared on the screen, tall, metallic, humanoid, stepping out of the tunnel entrance. It stood still, scanning the area, then turned its head upward as if it sensed her. She whispered to herself, "What are you?" The creature lifted its arm, and the power grid flickered alive again, but this time not under human control. Across every monitor, one message appeared in glowing red text. "We were the first. You are the last." Lara's hands trembled. The machines were no longer silent. The sleepers had truly awakened. The night sky over Coldridge was no longer dark. Strange red lights flickered from under the earth, spreading in lines that formed glowing patterns across the ground. It looked like the planet itself was alive, pulsing with energy. Malik drove the jeep fast along the mountain road, gripping the steering wheel tightly as the land shook beneath him. The road cracked open in places, forcing him to swerve again and again. The hard drive lay on the seat beside him, the only proof of what had awakened below. Behind him, the entire mining facility was gone. The hole in the valley was enormous, stretching wider with each tremor. From its depths came sounds that no one could describe, metal grinding, engines humming, and something that sounded like voices calling from another world. In the control room, Dr. Lara Jensen watched through the shattered windows as red mist rose from the crater. The computers around her flickered, showing symbols that looked like ancient writing mixed with digital code. She knew this was no simple machine, it was intelligent. Something buried under the earth had waited for a signal, and now it had found one. Her radio crackled to life for the first time in hours. A faint voice broke through the static. "Dr. Jensen, this is Colonel Hayes from Northern Command. We received seismic alerts from your sector. What's happening down there?" Lara quickly grabbed the MIC. "Colonel, you need to listen. We found something under the earth. It's not natural. It's waking up." The line went silent for a few seconds before the colonel spoke again. "We detected electromagnetic surges from your area, similar to nuclear activity. Are you saying this is not geological?" Lara stared out the window, where a giant metallic shape slowly rose from the crater, glowing with red symbols. "No, Colonel. It's not geological. It's alive." At that moment, the signal cut off again. The lights dimmed, and a low humming filled the air. The creature she had seen earlier stepped out of the mist, taller than any human structure. Its body was part metal, part stone, fused with ancient armor. Its red eyes scanned the valley, and as it moved, the ground trembled. Down below, Ethan was still trapped in the tunnels, his camera light flickering weakly. His breathing was shallow, and his mind was spinning. He could hear the same humming above him, growing louder. He found a service ladder and began climbing toward the surface. As he climbed, he noticed carvings on the tunnel walls, symbols glowing faintly like the ones on the creature's body. The carvings told a story, rough but clear. He saw drawings of giant beings descending from the stars, shaping the earth, building massive machines, then falling asleep beneath the crust. One image showed them watching humans rise from the dust, while another showed them buried again, waiting. When Ethan finally reached the top, he crawled out into the open air. The valley looked like a battlefield. Smoke, dust, and red mist covered everything. The mining camp was gone, swallowed by the earth. He saw Lara standing on a hill near the control tower, staring at something massive in the distance. He shouted her name and ran toward her. She turned, her face pale with disbelief. "Ethan, you're alive. I thought everyone was gone." He nodded, gasping for air. "I saw them, Lara. There are hundreds. Maybe thousands. They were buried under us. They're not machines, they're something older." Before she could reply, a loud metallic sound filled the air. The ground near them split open, and another giant figure rose from below. This one was different, smaller but faster, its eyes glowing white instead of red. It looked at the two humans but did not attack. Instead, it tilted its head and projected a beam of light onto the ground. The beam formed shapes, maps, diagrams, star patterns. Lara and Ethan stepped closer, realizing it was showing something. A map of Earth appeared, but the continents looked different, broken, rearranged, and surrounded by massive craters. Then, a second image showed the same planet glowing bright red, as if burning from within. Ethan whispered, "They're showing us what's coming." Lara shook her head. "No. They're showing us what already happened." The creature's light flickered again, and a distorted voice filled the air, metallic and ancient. Cycle terminated. Civilization reset. Sequence incomplete. Before they could react, a loud explosion echoed from the crater. The red mist erupted upward like a volcano. The giant figure they had seen earlier raised its arm, sending a wave of energy through the valley. The smaller being standing near Ethan and Lara stumbled back, its eyes flickering. It looked almost afraid. Then, the red-eyed giant turned its head toward them. Its voice thundered through the air. The sleepers rise again. The world repeats. You are not the first. Lara grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to get out of here now. They ran toward the jeep Malik had left near the ridge. As they drove away, the valley behind them glowed brighter, the sound of awakening spreading through the earth. The radio in the jeep came to life again, but the voice was not human. It spoke in broken English, calm and cold. Surface life identified. Observation phase initiated. Ethan looked back through the mirror. The valley was gone, replaced by a massive metallic structure rising from the earth, stretching toward the sky like a tower. Whatever was sleeping beneath the earth was not just waking, it was rebuilding. The wind howled across the broken valley as Ethan and Lara drove through the rough mountain road. The ground behind them glowed faintly red, spreading like veins beneath the surface. The jeep's tires bounced on the uneven dirt, and the radio crackled with strange mechanical sounds. Lara gripped the dashboard tightly while Ethan focused on the road ahead, his face pale but determined. For miles, they saw no other signs of life, no birds, no people, not even the sound of insects. The air felt heavy, filled with static. Every few seconds, a deep rumble rolled across the land, as if something giant was moving far below them. After an hour of driving, they finally reached the old research station at Black Ridge Base. The gates were open, and the power lights were dim, but at least it was standing. Ethan parked the jeep and turned off the engine. We'll send the data from here, he said. Lara nodded, clutching the hard drive. She knew the world needed to see what they had found, but part of her feared what might happen once the truth spread. They entered the base. The corridors were silent, coated with dust. Computers hummed softly in standby mode. It seemed like the place had been abandoned for years, but Lara knew it was only shut down last winter. She connected the hard drive to a terminal, her fingers trembling slightly. The screen came to life, showing the recorded footage from the mine, Ethan's shaky camera, the awakening, the red symbols, and the giant figures moving underground. As the video played, the computer began to slow down, then freeze. Lines of strange code filled the screen automatically, typing by themselves. Ethan leaned closer. Lara, that's the same pattern from the mine. She nodded, her eyes wide. They're inside the system. The signal is spreading. Before they could pull the plug, the speakers turned on, and a low metallic voice echoed through the base. Human data received. Confirmation complete. Reconnect ion initiated. The lights in the hallway flickered. The monitors switched on one by one, each showing the same image, a glowing red symbol spinning slowly. Lara hit the emergency shutdown, but nothing happened. The base was no longer under human control. Ethan looked out the window and froze. Lara, look. In the distance, across the dark mountains, bright red lines were forming in the ground, like circuits connecting one valley to another. The energy was moving, linking points across the land. It's a network, Ethan whispered. They're connecting to each other. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Alarms screamed throughout the base. A voice came through the radio, Malik's voice. It was broken and full of static, but they could make out a few words. They're everywhere, towers rising, people missing, run. Then the radio went dead. Lara felt a chill crawl up her spine. She turned back to the monitors. The red symbol had changed. Now it showed the outline of a human skull surrounded by mechanical lines. Beneath it, new words appeared. Phase 2, Surface Reconstruction. Before they could react, a loud crash came from outside. The front gate exploded inward, sending metal flying. Ethan grabbed Lara's arm and pulled her down behind a desk. Through the shattered window, they saw it, one of the smaller creatures, the same type they had seen near the crater. Its body was sleek, silver and black, with glowing white eyes. It stepped slowly into the base, scanning its surroundings with a faint hum. Ethan whispered, "Maybe it's not hostile." The creature tilted its head, and a beam of light swept across the room. It stopped on them. The beam turned red. Ethan grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung it at the control panel, breaking the monitors. Sparks flew, and the lights went out. The creature's head snapped toward the sound, and it raised its arm. From its palm, a glowing circle of energy formed. "Run!" Lara shouted. They sprinted down the hallway, the beam of energy blasting behind them, melting steel like butter. They turned a corner, slammed through a door, and climbed up the emergency ladder toward the roof. The creature followed, its steps echoing like thunder. When they reached the rooftop, the cold air hit their faces. Below them, the ground was covered in red veins of light spreading like roots. In the far distance, massive shapes were rising from the earth, metallic towers that pulsed with the same red glow. They looked like antennas, reaching for the sky. Ethan caught his breath. "They're changing the planet." Lara looked up. In the night sky, something strange appeared, small dark dots moving together in formation. They weren't planes or satellites. They were coming down from the upper atmosphere, glowing faintly red. Lara whispered, "It's not just underground. They're coming from above too." The creature burst through the door behind them, climbing onto the roof. Ethan turned, picking up a metal rod. "Go, Lara. Get to the jeep." She hesitated, but he shouted again. "Go." She ran across the roof and jumped down onto a lower platform. The creature turned its gaze toward her, charging another energy pulse. Ethan shouted and threw the metal rod, hitting the creature's arm. The beam misfired, blasting part of the roof. Ethan fell back as debris rained around him. Lara reached the jeep and looked back. The base was on fire, and the creature stood in the flames, turning its head slowly toward her. She started the engine, tears in her eyes. "Hold on, Ethan," she whispered. "I'll come back for you." As she drove into the dark mountains, the world behind her glowed red, and the voice on the radio returned, calm, cold, and ancient. "The awakening continues. The surface will be remade." The mountain road was silent except for the roar of the jeep's engine and the faint hum coming from beneath the ground. Lara drove fast through the darkness, her eyes fixed on the faint glow on the horizon. Every few minutes, she looked up at the sky, where red lights were moving slowly across the stars. They were not aircraft. They were too large, too silent, and they moved in perfect formation. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. Ethan was still at the base, somewhere behind her. The image of him standing against the creature burned in her mind. She had promised herself she would go back for him, but the truth was clear, if she returned now, she would die too. As the jeep climbed a steep hill, her radio came to life again. Static filled the cabin, followed by a weak human voice. "This is Northern Command. If anyone can hear this, repeat, this is Northern Command. Blackridge Base reports confirmed contact with unidentified machines. Evacuation protocols in effect." Lara grabbed the radio. "This is Dr. Lara Jensen. I survived the Blackridge collapse. They're not machines. They're something ancient. They're under the earth and above it too. You need to." The transmission cut off with a sharp screech. Then a new sound came through, deep and metallic. A voice, slow and calm. "Human transmission intercepted. Interference unnecessary. Observation continues." Lara threw the radio aside, her heart pounding. She could feel something was following her. The air itself seemed to vibrate with low energy. She looked in the rearview mirror, and froze. A bright red light appeared behind her, growing larger. Something was chasing her down the mountain. The road twisted through a narrow canyon. Lara turned sharply, the jeep skidding on loose gravel. A glowing figure moved through the dust behind her, floating a few feet above the ground. Its body was long and thin, covered in sharp metallic plates. It wasn't walking, it was gliding. The red light in its chest pulsed with every movement. Lara pressed harder on the accelerator. The jeep bounced and rattled, but she didn't slow down. The creature gained speed, closing in. She could hear a low humming sound building in the air, and the red glow reflected off the jeep's mirrors. Then, without warning, the creature shot a beam of red energy toward the ground. The road ahead exploded, sending rocks flying. The jeep spun out of control and crashed against a boulder. The engine died instantly. Lara hit her head against the steering wheel but forced herself to move. Smoke filled the air as she crawled out of the jeep, blood running down her forehead. The creature floated above the wreck, its red eyes glowing brighter. Lara stumbled backward, grabbing a flare gun from the jeep's emergency kit. She fired it toward the creature. The flare exploded in a burst of light, blinding it for a second. She used the moment to run, diving behind the rocks. The creature made a sound like metal grinding against metal and fired another beam that scorched the ground where she had stood. Her hands shook as she reloaded the flare gun. She fired again, this time hitting the creature's chest. The light burned against its metal skin, and for the first time, it let out a strange cry, something between a roar and a digital scream. It backed away, then disappeared into the red mist. Lara collapsed behind the rocks, gasping for air. The flare's light flickered out, leaving her in darkness again. Her body trembled from exhaustion, but she forced herself to move. She found a narrow path leading deeper into the mountains and followed it. Hours passed. The night sky began to lighten, showing the first signs of dawn. From the mountain ridge, she could see far across the valley. What she saw made her knees weak. Dozens of massive towers now stood where the mining site used to be. They pulsed with red light, sending energy beams into the clouds. The sky itself seemed to twist as the beams connected, forming a web across the atmosphere. Around the towers, more of the creatures moved, some walking, others floating. They were building something. Lara whispered to herself, "They're reshaping the planet." Then she heard a voice behind her, a voice she thought she'd never hear again. "Lara." She turned sharply. Ethan stood there, covered in dirt and dust, limping but alive. She ran to him, tears welling in her eyes. "Ethan, I thought you were dead." He shook his head slowly. "Not yet. But we don't have much time. I've seen what's below those towers. There's a massive structure under the crust. It's like a heart, it's beating, sending power everywhere." Lara looked at him, confused. "You mean they're using the Earth itself as—" Ethan nodded. "As fuel." Before they could speak again, a deep vibration shook the ground beneath them. The towers across the valley flashed in unison, sending a wave of red energy through the air. The mountains groaned as rocks cracked and shifted. Ethan grabbed Lara's hand. "We have to find shelter." They ran into a cave near the ridge as the wave passed overhead. The light illuminated everything for a few seconds, turning night into blood-red daylight. Inside the cave, Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Lara looked at him and saw something strange, a faint red glow under the skin of his hand. "Ethan," she whispered, "what happened to you down there?" He looked at his hand, then at her, his eyes dark and tired. "I think they touched me." Outside, the red light pulsed again, and the voice of the ancient sleepers whispered through the wind. "The transformation has begun. Humanity's time is ending." The cave walls shook as another tremor rolled through the mountains. Dust fell from the ceiling, and small rocks rattled down around Lara and Ethan. The faint red glow from the valley outside pulsed like a heartbeat, flashing through the cracks of the cave entrance. Lara stared at Ethan's hand. The glow beneath his skin was faint but steady, pulsing in rhythm with the lights outside. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling, "this isn't normal. You need help." He looked down at his hand, flexing his fingers. The veins beneath his skin shimmered faintly, like threads of molten metal. "When I was trapped down there," he said quietly, "one of them touched me. It didn't attack. It just placed its hand on my chest, and everything went black. When I woke up, it was gone, but I could feel something inside me. Like a signal." Lara backed away slightly, torn between fear and concern. "A signal? You mean they're tracking you?" Ethan shook his head. "No. It's not like that. It's more like, I can feel them. I can hear them whispering in my mind. They're talking to each other, and somehow, I can understand bits of it." "What are they saying?" Lara asked, her voice tight. Ethan's eyes glowed faintly red for a moment. "They're rebuilding the world. Not just the surface. They're restoring something that existed before humans ever walked this planet. Lara's heart pounded. You're saying they were here before us? He nodded. Long before. The Earth was their cradle. They called themselves the architects. They created the first life, then went to sleep beneath the crust, waiting for the right time to wake. They said our kind was only one phase of the cycle. And now, he looked toward the red sky outside. Now the cycle ends. Outside the cave, thunder rolled, not from the weather but from deep beneath the ground. The towers in the valley pulsed brighter, sending columns of red light into the clouds. The air hummed with energy. Lara turned to the cave entrance, watching the valley below. We can't let them finish whatever they're doing, she said. There has to be a way to stop it. Ethan didn't answer at first. He closed his eyes, focusing on the faint voices in his mind. Then he spoke in a low voice. There's something called the core nexus. It's buried beneath the largest tower. It's the heart of their network. If we can destroy it, it might stop the signal that's reactivating the others. Lara frowned. Destroy it? How? We don't even have weapons strong enough for that. Ethan looked at her with a strange calmness. Maybe we don't need weapons. Maybe they built the key inside me. Before she could respond, a loud crack split the air outside. The ground shifted violently, and a section of the mountain collapsed in the distance. Lara grabbed her bag and flashlight. Then we don't have time to wait. If there's even a chance we can stop this, we have to try. They stepped out of the cave and began descending toward the valley. The path was rough, covered in ash and debris. The closer they got, the hotter the air became. The ground felt alive, vibrating under their feet like the heartbeat of some enormous creature. As they reached the lower ridge, they saw the true scale of what was happening. The towers were not separate structures anymore. They were connecting with massive arcs of red energy, forming a circle that stretched for miles. In the center of that circle stood the largest tower, rising like a pillar into the stormy sky. Lightning flashed around it, though there were no clouds, only red mist swirling in endless motion. Lara whispered, "It's like they're terraforming the planet." Ethan's voice was distant. Not terraforming. Reclaiming. They moved quietly through the ruins of what used to be the mining site. The ground was covered in blackened metal fragments and glowing symbols etched into the soil. Strange drone-like creatures floated through the air, scanning the area. Ethan and Lara hid behind the remains of a collapsed wall as one passed overhead. Its red beam swept across the ground, but it didn't notice them. When the drone moved away, they continued forward. At the base of the main tower, they saw an enormous opening leading underground. Inside, a dim red light flickered, and a deep hum echoed through the air. The walls were lined with veins of energy, pulsing steadily. Ethan stopped. This is it. The core nexus is down there. Lara stared into the glowing tunnel. Then let's finish this. Before they could step inside, a shadow moved above them. They both looked up and froze. One of the massive humanoid sleepers stood at the top of the ridge, watching them. Its red eyes burned like fire, and its voice filled the air. Human interference detected. Termination required. Lara pulled Ethan behind the wall as the ground exploded beside them. The shockwave threw them back, debris flying everywhere. She crawled across the ground, reaching for Ethan, but he was already standing, his eyes glowing brighter than before. The sleeper raised its arm to strike, but Ethan lifted his hand, and to Lara's shock, the creature hesitated. Its movement slowed. The red light from its eyes flickered. Ethan's voice was strange, layered with an echo that didn't sound human. "Stand down," he said. "I am connected to the network. You will obey." The sleeper froze for a moment, then stepped back, lowering its arm. The red glow dimmed. Lara stared at Ethan, her mouth open in disbelief. "Ethan, what did you just do?" He turned to her slowly, the faint red glow still burning in his eyes. "I don't know," he said. "But I think I can control them." In the distance, the tower pulsed brighter, sending another wave of red energy across the sky. The world trembled again. Lara looked at the glowing structure ahead and then back at Ethan. "Then we use that power. We end this." Ethan nodded, his voice calm but distant. "Yes. But the closer we get to the nexus, the stronger their pull becomes. If I lose control..." Lara finished for him quietly, then they'll take you completely. Outside, the red light flashed again, brighter than before, and the voice of the ancient sleepers echoed through the valley. The architects have returned. The earth shall be remade. The air near the main tower burned with heat and static. Red lightning snaked through the sky as the ground shook beneath Ethan and Lara's feet. The pulse from the tower beat like a massive heart, sending waves of energy across the valley. Every pulse made the smaller towers flicker brighter, their hum merging into one steady tone that filled the air like a warning bell. Ethan stood at the entrance to the glowing tunnel, his body trembling. The light beneath his skin had spread to his neck and chest, glowing faintly through his clothes. Lara could see it pulsing with the same rhythm as the tower. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You're burning up," she said softly. He nodded weakly. "It's the signal. The closer we get to the core, the stronger it becomes. I can feel it pulling me." Lara looked into his eyes. They were no longer just human. The faint red hue within them flickered like embers. "You can fight it," she said. "You've controlled one of them already. You can stop this." He smiled faintly. "Maybe. But if I lose control, I want you to finish what we started." Before Lara could reply, a deep rumble echoed from inside the tunnel. The walls vibrated, and streams of molten light ran through the carved symbols. The voice of the sleepers filled the air again, calm, ancient, and unyielding. "The cycle nears completion. The architects rise. The surface will obey." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped inside. Lara followed close behind. The tunnel descended steeply, winding deep into the earth. The deeper they went, the more the walls seemed to move, shifting like veins in a living body. The sound of energy pulsed through the rock, vibrating in their bones. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber. It was like standing inside the heart of a machine. Gigantic columns of red light rose from the floor to the ceiling, connecting to a central core that spun slowly in the air. The core nexus. It pulsed with energy so strong that Lara's vision blurred just looking at it. Ethan staggered forward. "This is it," he said. "Everything, the towers, the creatures, they all draw power from this." Lara stared at the core. "Then we destroy it." "How?" Ethan turned to her, his voice low and calm. "We don't. I do." Before she could stop him, he walked toward the center of the chamber. The light around him flared brighter, reacting to his presence. The core's hum changed pitch, like it recognized him. The symbols on the walls began to glow in unison. Lara shouted, "Ethan, wait. You said they might take control of you." He turned back to her, his eyes glowing red. "If they want control, they'll have to take me with it. But I can stop the signal from spreading." The voice of the sleepers thundered through the chamber again, deeper now, echoing in Ethan's mind. "You are part of us. You cannot resist the origin." Ethan shouted back, his voice shaking the walls. "Maybe not. But I can end your cycle." He reached the core and placed both hands against it. The red light burst outward, flooding the room. Lara shielded her eyes. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Energy surged through the chamber, and Ethan screamed as the glow around him grew brighter and brighter. Through the blinding light, Lara could see the shapes of the sleepers forming on the chamber walls, giant figures made of energy, surrounding the core. Their voices merged into one deafening sound. "Integration complete. Rebirth begins." Lara ran toward Ethan, fighting against the shockwaves. "Ethan, stop. You'll die." He turned his head slightly, his face pale, but his eyes filled with strange peace. "It's okay. I can see it now. They weren't trying to destroy the world, they were trying to start it again. But this world isn't theirs anymore. It's ours." With one final breath, Ethan pressed harder against the core. The light shifted from red to white, pure and blinding. The entire chamber erupted in a wave of energy that shot up through the tunnels, into the towers, and across the sky. On the surface, the red lights of the towers flickered wildly, then one by one began to go dark. The glowing veins across the land dimmed. The thunderous hum faded into silence. For a brief moment, the whole world seemed to stop breathing. Then, silence. Lara opened her eyes slowly. The chamber was dark and filled with smoke. The core nexus was shattered, its energy gone. Ethan lay motionless on the ground where the core had stood. Lara stumbled toward him, tears streaming down her face. She touched his shoulder, but he didn't move. His body was cold, but peaceful. She looked up at the silent walls. The red symbols had all faded, leaving only the echo of what once was. The sleepers were gone. Lara whispered, "You did it." Hours later, the sky above the valley began to clear. The red haze faded, and sunlight broke through for the first time in days. The towers stood silent, their glow gone. The world looked wounded, but alive. Lara stood at the edge of the crater, holding Ethan's data drive in her hands. It contained every moment they had recorded, the discovery, the awakening, and the end. She whispered softly, "The world will know what you did." A faint wind passed through the valley, carrying a low hum, soft, distant, almost like a heartbeat. She turned, staring at the horizon. The light was gone, but deep in the earth, something faint still glowed. Perhaps not all of the sleepers had fallen silent. As the sun rose higher, Lara looked up, determination hardening in her eyes. "If they ever wake again," she whispered, "we'll be ready." Behind her, the ruins of the towers stood like ancient monuments, silent reminders of a war between the first and the last civilization. Far beneath the earth, in a place untouched by the blast, a single red light flickered once, then twice. And then, in the darkness, a voice whispered faintly, calm, patient, eternal. "Cycle will begin again."